What's up?
On Saturday night, Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested Mahmoud Khalil, a former Columbia graduate student who led pro Palestine demonstrations on campus last year. Yesterday, a federal judge blocked the Trump administration from deporting Khalil until a meeting on Wednesday. Leftists are arguing that Mahmoud should stay because they hate Israel and support Palestine. Some on the right are arguing that Mahmoud should stay because they think his protests are protected free speech, regardless of what they think about Israel or Palestine. I, for one, think Mahmoud should be deported, not because I care all that much about the Israel Palestine conflict, but because he's a Columbia graduate student, and all Columbia graduate students should be deported, even if they're American citizens. At a time of tectonic political shifts, what is the correct, conservative, American take? What do we believe? I'm Michael Knowles. This is the Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. You want to talk about ideological confusion? There is a funding bill that is before Congress right now that President Trump is in support of. You got a member of Congress and Thomas Massie who says he's going to vote no on the bill. And you got President Trump comparing Massie, who is arguably the most right-wing member of Congress, to Liz Cheney and saying that he's going to primary him. So which side are we on? What do we believe? What are we doing? I know one thing I'm doing. I'm getting myself the Mayflower Cigars Captain's Capsule. That's right, baby. I've been very excited about this product, and it was getting delayed in shipment, and I haven't talked about it at all. It is graduation season. It is soon to be Father's Day season. It is wedding season. This is the gift. You get the Captain's Capsule. It is the perfect gift for graduation, for Father's Day, for weddings. Have a few of these hanging around. You pop open the little capsule. Oh, I'm waiting for it to pop open like it's a. Look at this. You get a little cool can in there. So you take it just like you're cracking an ice cold one. You open up that can, sealed for freshness, so you don't need to worry about your cigars drying out. And then you get this beautiful assortment of 8 cigars. I'm not going to take them all out, but you get the picture. You get some of the dawn, you get some of the dusk. It's nice, okay? You don't need to worry about transporting it. You don't, oh no, are the cigars going to get crushed? Are they going to dry out? No. The Captain's Capsule has you covered. Get yours now before they sell out. I don't want to hear about it. Oh, my son didn't get one for graduation. Oh, my husband didn't get you got warning. Now, before we get into any actual news or stories or anything, I want to tell you about Public Rec. Go to publicrec.com, use code Michael. Everyone deserves to be comfortable while looking sharp. That is exactly what Public Rec delivers. Before Public Rec, how many of you had to sacrifice comfort for a nice put together style? You know, you get the stiff, scratchy, odd sizing, all comes with the territory of a sophisticated look, or so you thought. But now I am a changed man because I have sweet, sweet Public Rec pants that offer exceptional comfort and versatility with a professional silhouette that transitions seamlessly from demanding workdays to relaxed evenings. You really can wear this fabric anywhere. In fact, I even wore it out in the snow. One time when it snowed in Nashville, I went out and played with the boys. It's fabulous. As we head into the warmer months, they have a complete collection of premium everyday styles, from perfectly fitted polos to comfortable shorts, each piece designed with the same attention to detail and commitment to comfort. Comfortable enough for the couch, sharp enough for the city. For a limited time, you can get 20% off at Public Rec by using code Michael, Michael, at checkout. Just head to publicrec.com, use code Michael, Michael, and you're all set. When they ask how you found them, you know what to do. Tell them that I sent you. Upgrade to Public Rec and feel the difference. Before we move on from this Columbia grad student, or former Columbia grad student, I should say, what do you think? I bet there are many of you in the audience who are so certain about your political views. Whenever you see a news story, you say, I immediately know this side is right, this side is wrong. These people are going to be on this side, those people are going to be on that side. But this one is dividing people, even on the right. You have some who are saying, look, this guy, he supports a terrorist group. He is not an American citizen. Get him out of here. Who cares? Even some people say, I really support Israel. Israel's one of my most important issues, and this guy hates Israel, so deport him for that reason. But there are going to be some people who say, look, well, there are going to be some people on the right who say, I don't like Israel, and so I actually like this guy that he's pro-Palestine, he should stay here. But there are going to be some people who say, even though I'm the most ardent pro-Israel supporter in the whole world, I think this man has a right to free speech, and he can lead protests, even if they're disruptive, even if they threaten students, even if they cause all sorts of problems. I'm a little bit simpler about it, I guess. I try not to get too lost in the ideology of constantly talking about rights, and in the ideology of liberalism, and in the ideology of free speech and academic freedom and thisism and thatism. I look at it, I say, okay, is this guy, he's a citizen or he's not a citizen? Oh, he's not a citizen. Okay. He's not even a student anymore. He graduated in December. Okay. So he's not a citizen, which means he has no right to be here in the United States. I look at the protests that he was involved in. I don't know. I mean, the Israel-Palestine conflict, I guess, is complex, but I don't know. You're supporting the side that's run by Hamas. That's a little sus to me. And those protests were quite nasty to Jewish students in particular at Columbia. And I don't really care all that much about the Israel-Palestine conflict. And I do wish that we in America were as muscular at tackling anti-Christian discrimination as we are at tackling anti-Jewish discrimination, anti-Muslim discrimination, anti-thisism, anti-thatism. But Christianity is the one religion that we are allowed to and actually encouraged to mock in public and denigrate and push to the side. So all of those things considered, yeah, sure. But my chief question for immigration is, what benefit are these people to America? In some cases, in rare cases, we take in refugees out of the goodness of our heart because it's gracious and charitable, and we were strangers in the land of Egypt. That's a relatively small aspect of what we're talking about here. When it comes to immigration, the primary question, at least to my mind, is, do these people benefit America? In fact, that's how our immigration laws are written. That's how basically all immigration laws everywhere in the world are written. Does this person benefit the country? Do they do a job, for instance, that people in the country can't do? Do they offer some special benefit? If they do, let him in, maybe. And if they don't let him in. So I look at this guy, I say, okay, his political ideology is pretty whack, and he doesn't seem to be contributing all that much to the country. And he's a Columbia graduate student, which means his views are almost certainly horrible, and he's very unlikely to support America. So I don't know. To me, it's a little bit more of a practical prudential question. I'm not going to lose sleep over Mahmoud Khalil being deported after leading a bunch of his fellow Columbia grad students, one of the most left-wing of the Ivy League schools, which are already left-wing. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. Now, speaking of ideological conflict and immigration for that matter, a clip has gone viral from Jubilee's Surrounded show. This is the show that I was on a month ago. It's the show where one person surrounded by 20 or 25 people who disagree with him, and he's got to just debate them successively. So it was me versus 20 or 25 LGBT LMNOP activists. That was an hour and 40 minutes. You can go watch it over at the Jubilee channel. This week's episode was with a left-wing political commentator named Sam Seder. And Sam Seder showed up, and he was surrounded by, I guess, 20 or 25 conservatives. They were debating all sorts of questions, one of which was religious fundamentalism. We'll get to that in a moment. The other of which was immigration. And so he's sitting down next to this right-wing journalist, Sarah Stock, and they're just getting down to brass tacks on immigration. And Sam Seder cannot believe the things that she is saying. Take a listen.
What's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general? To
like
be xenophobic,
yes.
nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Which, do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is the
based
dominant
on
culture?
European and Christian values and identity. That is the dominant culture.
White
It's rooted
Christian-
in European identity.
White, so your argument is
That
that
has been the dominant culture.
just to be
and
clear-
we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you
Your-
should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then, if that's not the identity of America?
Well, I think the identity of
For the
America...
majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been,
Okay, let's put a pause right here before he gets into what it means. I love how he's stalling. He doesn't know how to respond to her. Well, no, actually, what's her argument? She's using a provocative slogan, no doubt. Xenophobic nationalism. This is a scare phrase used by the left. And so she is provocatively throwing that phrase back at the left. But what's she saying? Xenophobic, meaning preferring one's own countrymen to foreigners, and nationalism, meaning preferring the nation to a kind of borderless liberal globalism. Well, that's what most American voters voted for in November. Not exactly in those terms, not in such sensationalist rhetoric, but that is what people voted for. And then Sam Seder says, well, hold on. Are you telling me you think there's a dominant culture in America? She says, of course there's a dominant culture. There's a dominant culture in any polity. Of course there is. Culture is defined by something, and whatever it is defined by is the dominant aspect of the culture. Okay, well, you're telling me that America traditionally has been defined by European culture and Christianity? She says, yes. But could you disagree with that? Would anybody seriously disagree with that? In 1960, she says it has been, at least until very recently. In 1960, 93% of Americans were Christian. In 1960, just under 90% of Americans were white, so descended from Europeans. America, really, whatever view you take of the Mayflower, great cigar brand, and the American founding, the Revolutionary War, and the 19th century up through the 20th century, can you really argue it didn't come from European values, European institutions? We were a British colony. What is your argument? The American Revolution was influenced by the European Enlightenment, for better and worse. The founding of America at Plymouth Colony was a separatist movement from England. America doesn't just exist in outer space or something like that. It's not just floating through the ether. It comes from historical movements developed by real people from real places. You might say, well, that's terrible. I hate Europe. Or you might say, that's terrible. I hate Christianity. I wish America weren't like that. You can make that argument. The left makes that argument all day long. But if you're this guy, if you're the liberal guy on this, you're really going to be confused by the idea that America comes from Europe and that the religion that has dominated in America has been Christianity? I mean, John Adams says the principles on which the revolution was won were the principles of Christianity. John Jay goes further. He says, thank God that we all descend from the same stock and that we all have the same religion and we all believe basically the same stuff. And you can find similar writings throughout many, many other founding fathers and framers of our Constitution. And you can just look at the demographics, religious, ethnic, national, all the rest. We didn't have mass migration of the sort that we're looking at today until the mid-1960s. So things start to change. But even still, most Americans are at least vaguely Christian. And I guess the majority of Americans are still white. So it's 60%, so it's obviously much lower than you. So I don't know, regardless of whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, how could this liberal guy be confused by that? Is he's really that ignorant of not just what his opponents believe, but of American history? And we'll get into
I don't know.
really
We completed it. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. We got lucky.
Go to puretalk.com/Knowles. If you're with Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, you could be saving a fortune every month by switching to Pure Talk. That is Pure Talk, my cell phone company that cuts the fat from the wireless industry. For just $35 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data with hotspot on America's most dependable 5G network. Now, I'm going to stop you right here because what you just heard is on a really good network. I didn't say on a really good network. I didn't say on a pretty good network. I said on America's most dependable 5G network. The average family of four saves over $1,000 a year when they switch to Pure Talk. Could you use $1,000 a year? I think we could all appreciate an extra $1,000 a year. When you switch to Pure Talk's super low $35 plan this month, you will get 1 year of Daily Wire Plus for free. The only way you can get it is by going to puretalk.com/Knowles, KNWLES. Switch to Pure Talk at puretalk.com/Knowles. Get a year of Daily Wire Plus for free with a qualifying plan. Pure Talk Wireless by Americans for Americans. Jubilee podcast surrounded lib Sam Seder versus conservative Sarah Stock. Keep going.
The identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're assimilating to the dominant culture. Is that not what melting means?
No.
Okay, so he says, no, it's a melting pot. And she says, yeah, that's how we view it since the 1960s. It goes back a little earlier. The term melting pot comes from a play by a playwright named Israel Zangwill in 1908. And curiously, Teddy Roosevelt went to see this play and loved it so much. He said, Mr. Zangwill, this is a great play. I love this play. And the notion of America being this melting together of different identities goes back earlier than 1908. So it had been building for some time. But then she hits the real point there, which is, well, hold on. A melting pot means assimilation. A melting pot is not a salad bowl, for instance. It's not that you keep your distinct identities, the tomatoes over here and the cucumbers over here and the lettuces over here. The melting pot means you all melt together. And Zangwill, who wrote the play, The Melting Pot, actually explained this 5 years after it was first produced. He said, the process of American amalgamation is not assimilation or simple surrender to the dominant type, as is popularly supposed, but an all-around give and take by which the final type may be enriched or impoverished. So he's saying it's not that you totally give up your identity. When the Italians came here, for instance, they didn't totally give up their identity. When the Irish came here, they didn't totally give up their identity, but they largely did. To the point that, just to use the Italians, partially my people as an example, you can no longer predict an Italian American's political views and behaviors based on their ethnicity. You get Nancy Pelosi on the left, you get Antonin Scalia on the right. You get Andrew Cuomo on the left, you get Michael Knowles. Oh, that's the English name from my father's side. But, I got a lot of Italians on the other side. On the right. You can't tell. The Italians have assimilated, and they've added to American culture. Mob movies are a big part of our popular entertainment. People really love pizza. Certain Italian expressions have gained traction. But they've also surrendered a lot of Italian stuff. So what Sarah Stock is saying here, the point she's making is almost entirely correct. She says, look, we're not just a melting pot. Like, we come from a real culture. But even if we were a melting pot, that means that you do at least largely give up your identity. You contribute a little, but you give up your identity to assimilate to this new kind of identity, which is the American identity. And then they conclude on the biggest head scratcher.
And now instead we're saying there's something wrong with xenophobia.
Culture. No. I mean, look, I got to be honest with you. You and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. It's a choice. And I think what you're expressing, though, is really what the Trump movement at its heart is about. And I think that's problematic.
I disagree. I don't think Trump's anywhere close to being a Christian nationalist. That's ridiculous. Trump's basically a Democrat from 15 years ago when it comes to social
So you don't.
I love this point. And I think President Trump would agree with that. I think a lot of Trump voters would agree with that. It's he's waving the rainbow flag. Trump he doesn't care that much about, hard right-wing traditionalist social conservatism. That's how he got people like Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Rogan and most voters to vote with him. Is He's the center. Trump is the center. Trump is the mainstream. It's the left that is extreme now. But Trump is, he's not Sam Sater saying, well, this kind of extreme right-wing rhetoric, that's why people vote for Trump. She goes, what are you talking about? He says, I just disagree with you. I got to be honest with you. Whenever someone says, I got to be honest with you, as a preface to their statement, what they are admitting is that they are regularly not honest with you. They previously have been dishonest with you. So he says that. He says, well, I got to be honest with you. I just don't agree that America, what? That America has a religion? You don't agree. You don't agree. We have In God We Trust in our national anthem and on our money. We were founded by people who called themselves pilgrims. Okay, the founding fathers and the framers wrote extensively about the importance of Christianity to their country. And you're telling me we don't have a religion, we don't have a founding stock of people. No, not England. It's not the Dutch. It's not. No, it's not. It's Martians. I don't know what it is. It has not. There's no religion. There's no founding stock. There are no traditions. There's no common morality. There's really no geography. So what is America? Matt Walsh asked this question yesterday. It's probably going to be his next movie. That's going to complete the trilogy. What is America? But the answer from the libs on the left and the right is, well, America's an idea. Merely an idea. Floating in outer space, in the ether. Except, when they say that, they say America's an idea. You say, okay, what's the idea? At least the people who say that on the right, well, they'll say, well, it's the idea of individual liberty and it's the idea of free association. And they'll give you some answer from late 20th century libertarian readings of the American founding. And it might be right, it might be wrong, but at least they'll give you an answer. You ask the left, what's the idea of America? They won't give you an answer because the left-wing liberal project is about surpassing all limits. It's about maximizing individual autonomy. It's about breaking down anything that might circumscribe choice. So if you say, well, what's the idea? America's just an idea. Okay, what's the idea of America? They can't tell you, because to say America is this idea is simultaneously to say that America is not that idea, which contradicts this idea. And they can't do that. America's got to be everything to everyone for all times. America, the idea would have to contradict Aristotle's law of non-contradiction, because it would have to include every idea. So to the left, America is not even just an idea. America is an idea of an idea. It is so radically abstract that it's nothing. And in practice, when the left governs, America is nothing. It has no border. It has no tradition. It has no common language. It's nothing. It's a vacuum. Now, nature abhors a vacuum and will fill it up. I suggest you fill up the air in your home with the Smells and Bells candle from the Candle Club. Go to thecandleclub.com/Michael. Get that beautiful Smells and Bells candle today. Okay, I will move on from this Jubilee episode, but it was fascinating. And this guy in particular was a really interesting guest on the Jubilee episode, because the format it has seemed to be is you get one conservative to debate 24 libs. The first guest was Charlie Kirk. Ben Shapiro went on there. Lila Rose went on there. I went on there. And I have no false modesty here, generally seems to be the rule that the conservative is surrounded by 24 libs and the conservative beats all the libs. It seems to be the structure of the show, okay? Listen, false modesty is a form of pride, and so I will admit, not just for me, but for the other three conservatives too, they generally won pretty decisively. In this case, the lib facing off against the 20 conservatives, he lost. He didn't come, even if you're a big fan of this guy or whatever, I don't follow his stuff at all, but I've heard of him at least. I know he's a liberal commentator, and he did not do as well as the conservatives did against the libs. You saw the exchange with Sarah Stock. Here's another exchange. I wish I had this guy's name. I just started following him on X yesterday, but I don't have his name off the top of my head. Another conservative comes up to debate religious fundamentalism. And here, Sam Sater's ideological confusion or philosophical confusion becomes even more manifest.
Hey.
Eliezer.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Okay, so I would like to touch on the religious fundamentalist aspect.
Yeah.
Are you an atheist?
I'm a Reformed Jew. I don't have a strong belief in the existence of God, but I don't think that religion in and of itself is bad.
Okay, so what's wrong with religious fundamentalists? So like when you said trans rights and women's rights or something like that?
Well, the problem I have with religious fundamentalists, and really more, I guess it's really theocrats,
Okay.
is that they want to impose their morality that comes from their religion on the rest of us. And I don't.
But morality, from your view, is going to be a preference, right? It's not morality; it's a preference.
What's
So morality without a foundation is going to reduce you to a preference,
well, I have a foundation for my morality.
which is what?
It's a humanist vision of what basically creates as little suffering as possible for as many people.
Okay, so you're like a consequentialist, utilitarian.
I don't really
Okay,
bother
it's
myself
fine.
with being a consequentialist or a
Okay.
utilitarian.
Okay. What is remarkable about this exchange is not that Sam Seder is a leftist or that his interlocutor is a conservative. What is remarkable about this exchange is that the leftist taking on the 24 conservatives doesn't know what he himself believes. What's remarkable about this exchange? It's not that the leftist doesn't understand what the conservatives believe, that we expect. The leftist doesn't understand the basic premises of his own arguments. He says, look, I don't like religious fundamentalism. He never really defines it. He's obviously confused about it. I don't like theocrats. He clearly doesn't know what a theocrat is because a theocracy is government by religious clerics. But here he's using theocracy to mean government by people who have religious views, which is all governments for all time. And certainly we have a self-government, we're a people that have religious views. So he's totally confused about what theocracy means. But so the interlocutor says, what is the basis of your morality? Is it just preference, just whatever you feel like, which is sort of what it seems like? And Seder says, no, it's not that. And he's kind of stumbling around. He says, I want to reduce suffering for the greatest number of people possible. Okay, now that is a moral view. That is the view of Peter Singer, for instance, who is a professor at Princeton. And the interlocutor rightly says, he said, okay, so you're a consequentialist. Your ethics is a consequentialist ethics. And Seder looks really confused. He says, humana. He says, utilitarian. Utilitarianism is a subset of consequentialist ethics. And Seder looks at him and says, I'm not think about I'm a consequentialist or a utilitarian. But it wasn't like really a question to him. The interlocutor was helping him. He was saying, the thing you've just described by definition is a form of utilitarian ethics, specifically one advocated not even just by John Stuart Mill or Jeremy Bentham, but most recently by Peter Singer. That's your view. And so the question then becomes, well, why is that your view? I guess the grounding of my ethics is that good is to be done and evil is to be avoided. That's different than his utilitarianism, which is just minimize suffering for the greatest number of people possible. It reveals a great distinction between classical political philosophy and liberal political philosophy. Classical political philosophy pursuing the greatest good, the summum bonum, the common good, recognizing that there is such a thing as a common good in society. Liberal political philosophy, beginning with Thomas Hobbes, saying that basically there is no common good, we can't really understand a greatest good. The only thing that we could even define as a common good is peace to save us from the war of all against all, in which life is nasty, brutish, and short. And so really what we're after is not pursuing the greatest good, but avoiding the greatest evil, which is death, suffering and death. That's kind of where that comes from. So it's an interesting political divide, and it could have been an interesting conversation, except the left. This guy showed up. He's supposed to be one of the better people on the left to articulate his views. He doesn't even know what he believes. Also, it's not like this guy's 22 years old. I think this guy's pushing 60, okay? This guy's had a long time to figure out what he thinks. He doesn't even know what he thinks. I think this is true broadly with the left, and it's why our political debates are largely fruitless. And this is backed up by social science, by the way. I think Jonathan Haidt did a paper on this. It's not just that we're speaking past each other. It's not just that, we have an irreconcilable first principles or something like that. It's even more basic than that. The right understands the left, and the left doesn't understand the right. And so when the left is simply making arguments from ignorance, the bases of which they themselves don't understand. Now, speaking over confusion on what we believe, it's a great, you got to watch the Jubilee episode. It's fabulous. Speaking of confusion over what we believe, Dylan Mulvaney, he's back. He needs a little press. He'd been out of the news for a year or so. And so he's got a book. We covered the book on the show a week or two ago, a little bit from the first part of it. Now he's doing the media tour. He goes on The View, and forget about Dylan Mulvaney, even forget about the transgenderism issue, which I'm sick of talking about. Just pay attention to how Whoopi Goldberg, a chief spokesman of the American left in pop culture, because she has the seat on The View for many years, notice how little she understands about the view that she is proposing.
I'm not sure what's going on or why this is an issue. The same for me as when people say, oh, I don't know how I feel about you. You do. God doesn't make mistakes.
No.
And the challenge is not to the trans people, it's to the people who are not trans. That's what God is looking to see, how you treat people.
Yeah.
That's what is happening. So I was just
The argument is transgenderism is true. Men can be women. Men should be permitted to behave as women. Men should be permitted to undergo mutilations, to radically change their bodies, chemical procedures, psychiatric treatment, perhaps all the way down even to little children. They must be permitted to do that because God doesn't make mistakes. You catch the contradiction there? Listen, Johnny, you're a boy, you got all the boy parts and the boy DNA, and you've been Johnny your whole life. But now you say that you're Sally. And you say you were born in the wrong body, and your true identity doesn't match the body in which you, the true you, were born. And so you must undergo very expensive, very painful medical experiments to change your body to better align with your perceived understanding of yourself, because God doesn't make mistakes. Right. God doesn't make, if you want to take the God doesn't make mistakes, obviously God in principle doesn't make mistakes, though that doesn't really tell us about the point Whoopi's trying to make here. But if you say God doesn't make mistakes, then you would say, yeah, transgenderism's fake. God doesn't make mistakes. You're a boy. Now, what is needed here is just a more thorough and coherent anthropology, because God does not make mistakes. God does not do evil. And yet, mistakes are made in the world, and evil exists in the world. So how do we account for that? Whoopi's confusion, a lot of the left's confusion in political philosophy, by the way, comes from their inability to understand original sin. The fact that they took original sin, the Christian concept, Christianity, which built our civilization, and they just throw it out. They don't like the idea of original sin. But original sin is not some prescription about people. It's a description. It's just a fact of the world. It's a fallen world. So how do we make sense of that? Even little babies, they don't commit any personal sin, and yet bad things happen. And they do bad things, even though they're not totally aware of it. How do you make sense of that? Well, there is original sin. Okay, so if you can make sense of original sin, where does original sin come from? It's because human beings have abused their free will. So it's not God doing the evil. It's not God making a mistake. It's man abusing his free will. And in the Christian understanding, then, you would say, well, look, maybe God didn't make a mistake in the evil that pervades the world, but he definitely made a mistake in creating the world, because he created a world in which human beings would abuse their free will. And so that itself was a mistake, right? No. Christianity accounts for this too, in the fact of the incarnation and the atonement. That perhaps this is, in fact, the greatest possible world, because a world in which God himself takes on flesh and dwells among us, in which God sends his only begotten Son to be crucified for our sins and to be resurrected on the third day, is an even better world than a world in which man had not abused his free will and fallen. You might say, well, that's all crazy, Michael. I don't believe in any of that. I'm not a Christian. I'm not saying you have to be, though I recommend it. I think you should be. I'm just telling you, Christianity accounts for that. Our traditional understanding of ourselves in our culture accounts for that. It makes sense of the world. Liberalism does not. Leftism random humanist utilitarianism, whatever Sam Seder on the Jubilee show says. It doesn't. Whoopi Goldberg's understanding of transgenderism, it doesn't make sense of the world, even on their own terms. So you can tell me, well, I find Christianity unsatisfying and insufficient. Okay, what's better? Give me a better alternative. You can't. You can't. And that's where a lot of our confusion comes from. We threw out the systems that did make sense and that allowed our civilization to flourish. And we said, we know better. We can recreate the world out of our tiny stock of reason. But turns out we're not that good at it. And things begin to decay as a result of that. Now, at the Daily Wire, we bring you the facts. No filter, no spin, no corporate leash. Join the live chat during our daily shows, 100% uncensored and ad-free, and packed with fans who actually think for themselves. Get the news the way it should be, honest, fearless, and without an agenda, other than my own agenda, which I'm open about. Your voice matters. Be part of it. Join now at dailywire.com/subscribe. My favorite comment yesterday actually didn't come from YouTube. It came in an email from a young man who hosted me one evening after I spoke at a university. And had a really enjoyable dinner after this university speech, a number of the students and people. But anyway, he wrote this in. He said, Michael, I briefly wanted to push back on your outlook of boozing and Zoomers. While I do partially share your sentiment, the rebellion against the system, or your parents, which Joe Rogan points to as a reason young men have flocked to conservatism, I fear the problem is far more serious. We live in a recorded, judgmental digital world where a foolish night out sees young men faced with allegations that strip them of their dignity and where men do not even wish to approach women for fear of being seen as creepy or weird. A shocking 45% of men my age, 18 to 25, have never asked a woman out in person. That's a crazy number. I wasn't aware of that number. Meanwhile, online alternatives mean no more drinking in the parking lot before a movie, after the football game, or at a casual bar. Less hookups, good, less drinking, neutral, and less eudaimonia, less happiness, less human flourishing, bad. A great point. A great point. Because my view was it's hip to be square. The Zoomers aren't drinking because, they're on the straight and narrow or something. But that's a great caveat to it. And it takes a big, handsome, wise, delightful man to admit when he's missed something. And that's a very good addition. Getting back to some practical politics for a second, we got a fight going on, baby. Well, this actually does link in with everything we've been talking about today because it gets to ideological confusion, this time not on the left, but on the right. House Republicans have a continuing resolution before them, a bill that would avoid a government shutdown and fund the government through September. President Trump supports this bill. The vast majority of Republicans in Congress support this bill. All the Democrats oppose it. I think every single one. Maybe there are one or two strays, but I think every single one opposes it. The Republicans overwhelmingly support it. 3 Republicans are no or maybe no on it, and one of those Republicans is a hard no. Thomas Massie. What's really interesting about this is Thomas Massie is regularly considered one of, if not the most right-wing member of Congress. But he says no. So first, what's in the bill? The continuing resolution increases defense spending by $6 billion. It decreases non-defense discretionary spending by $13 billion. So non-defense discretionary spending excludes things like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, which the libs have been fear-mongering on for decades at this point, saying Republicans want to throw Granny off a cliff and kill your Social Security. Some Republicans have been open to it. Trump, though, consistently for his entire political career has said, we're not going to touch entitlements. We're not touching Social Security. We're not touching Medicare or Medicaid. Now, that's non-discretionary spending. That's money that just has to be spent. So the $13 billion that's being decreased is out of money that is not spent on defense, and it's not mandatory spending. There is not a single earmark in this bill. Pork barrel spending, community projects, which is how members assent to give their vote to a lot of bills, is they'll say, well, look, I'll give you my vote, but you got to build a $10 million bridge in my district. It doesn't even need to go anywhere. It could be a bridge to nowhere, but you got to build it. And so there's a lot of federal spending there. As a portion of the federal budget, it's not a huge deal. John McCain made it a big deal during the 2008 presidential campaign because he was a Republican who supported bigger spending projects, not just on defense, but also on entitlements. So the way that he could seem like he was tough on spending was to go after earmarks, which are a relatively small portion of federal spending. But in any case, this bill doesn't have that either. Immigration customs enforcement spending is slightly up to $10 million here. So my read on it is, as far as continuing resolutions go, it's pretty good. It freezes spending at 2024 levels, so the spending is at least not going to increase. And it reduces spending in certain areas, which is good. And then Trump and Elon are reducing spending in the executive branch through their own power, not through the legislature. So all in all, it's pretty good. If I were a member of Congress, I would vote for this. However, I understand why some members might say, well, it's still a lot of money. And so you got Tim Burchett and Corey Mills, two Republicans, who are saying, I don't know, I'm on the fence. But the one who says, no, I'm a no, is Thomas Massie, who is a huge fiscal hawk. He's kind of like Rand Paul in that way. Rand Paul in the Senate votes against a ton of stuff, just kind of reflexively. Both of these guys are from Kentucky. Must be something in the water. But in any case, it's a principled stand. I don't know that I agree with it, but it's a principled stand. And Trump is furious. Trump is now threatening to primary Thomas Massie. He says, thank you to the House Freedom Caucus for just delivering a big blow to the radical left Democrats and their desire to raise taxes and shut our country down. Because the House Freedom Caucus, which is usually the impediment, they usually obstruct these kinds of bills. They've agreed, okay, we're going to support it. The Democrats hate America and all it stands for. That's why they allowed millions of criminals to invade our nation. Sometimes it takes great courage to do the right thing. Congressman Thomas Massie of beautiful Kentucky is an automatic no vote on just about everything. That's kind of true. Despite the fact that he has always voted for continuing resolutions in the past, he should be primaried, all caps, and I will lead the charge against him. He's just another grandstander who's too much trouble and not worth the fight. He reminds me of Liz Cheney before her historic record-breaking fall, parentheses, loss. I like how he has to give you a synonym. He has to define what her fall was. It's a loss. She lost. The people of Kentucky won't stand for it. Just watch. Do I have any takers? All caps, 3 question marks. Anyway, thank you again to the House Freedom Caucus for your very important vote. We need to buy some time in order to make America great again, greater than ever before. Unite and win. Okay, this is notable, not because Trump is threatening to primary a Republican. That's happened before. He's threatening to primary one of the most right-wing Republicans. How is the Republican base going to take this? Say what you will. Thomas Massie is no Liz Cheney. He's got some real right-wing bona fides. Will the GOP base take this? This will be a test of how much Trump dominates the GOP. I suspect in a fight between Trump and Massie, even though Massie's a real tough guy, I think Trump's going to win. I think he just dominates the GOP that much. But there's a real question. What do we believe? What do we want? What are we fighting for? Whose side are we on? What defines conservatism? What defines our politics? The Trump election, certainly the Trump reelection, signals a seismic shift, a tectonic plate shift in our politics. The shift from Reagan to Bush to Clinton to Obama, to Clinton to Bush to Obama, it wasn't all that big. They all kind of basically agreed the same stuff. The shift to Trump was a big shift. Okay, the shift from Eisenhower and Nixon to JFK and LBJ, and then certainly into the LBJ administration, that was a big shift. The shift into FDR's administration, certainly the shift into Woodrow Wilson's, that was another big shift. Wasn't just moving deck chairs around. You know, there was an actual change. We're seeing a change here. And so the question is, what will define the right at American politics moving forward? This battle between Trump and Massie is a pretty good example of that. Okay, there's a story I really want to get to. I don't know if I have time, though. Well, I will. I'll get to it. I'll get to it really quickly. The Financial Times has a woman's guide to wearing ties. Woman's Guide to Wearing Ties. FT, women should wear ties. The latest female power dressing flex is women wearing long neckties. I can get to this story very quickly because my advice is very simple. Don't do it. It makes you look like a lesbian. Neckties are good. Men should wear more neckties than they do. I'm guilty of this. I don't wear a necktie on this show. I probably should. Neckties look good. It completes an outfit for a man, but it's for a man, not for a woman. The FT is admitting this when they say it's a power dressing flex. And power is traditionally understood as more a male virtue than a female virtue. Women have plenty of power in their own right, but it's a little bit different. And when the women try to be the girl boss in the boardroom, that is women consciously taking on virtues that are traditionally ascribed to men, not to women. The neckties for women are nothing new. They have popped up for over 100 years, but it's always by women who are trying to be more like men and who are probably disproportionately lesbian, if we're being totally frank about it. Okay, it's the suffragettes, for instance, wore neckties. Feminists of 150 years have worn neckties. Ladies, don't do it. You have real power in your own nature. You don't need to. I'm not saying you can't go work in public. I'm not saying you can't do this. I'm not saying you can't do plenty of things that men do that you want to do. But trying to be a man is not expanding your power. It is limiting your power by saying that the only kinds of virtues that are to be pursued, that have any value, are the virtues that naturally attain to men. Okay, you're a woman. It's good. That's something. I can't be a woman. Men are dressing like women. Women are dressing like men. It's very confused. Ideologically, very confused. Anthropologically, very confused. It's Tee Tuesday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.
Anti-Elon Musk protesters are taking their anger out on Tesla cars and dealerships. We have brand new photos of the man accused of firebombing a Tesla dealership in Salem, Oregon.
Who did it?
Causing $500,000 worth of damage. Surveillance
so this
photos
is the guy.
show the suspect walking towards the Tesla dealership before Molotov cocktails were thrown at the building. A red Tesla bursting into flames, and then the suspect allegedly threw a rock and shattered the dealership window. When investigators arrived on the scene, they found more Molotov cocktails in the parking lot. And on top of this violence, the liberal media is now mocking Elon Musk,
crazy.
Celebrating the failure of SpaceX's latest rocket launch. Watch.
Tonight, Elon Musk blew something up and disrupted the lives of thousands of Americans. For the second time in less than 2 months, a rocket launched by Elon Musk's company SpaceX exploded and rained potentially dangerous debris down over a wide area of Earth, causing real chaos for planes and airline passengers.
It is the second consecutive Starship test flight from Elon Musk's company to end with destruction. All I could think about was, I can't sing.
No, please don't. That's good. That's good. We got it.
That's good, bro. He's so fucking annoyed. He's trying to get her to stop. He knows this is cooked, man.
Was, I can't sing.
No, please don't.
Please don't.
That's good. That's good. We got it.
We got it. Yeah.
We understand how painful that was for y'all out there.
Man.
Just as watching these things blow up. His response to all of this was rockets are hard. And Mr. Musk...
I bet they are. Yeah, rockets are hard. Yeah, true. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's a good point.
They're so hard. Why don't you go back to your day job and work that out? And leave those of us who do government to do government, because you can't do both.
Man. So it was a test flight. In order to do a test flight, you have to have, like, NASA had failures too. NASA had tons of failures. Look at the, was it Columbia, or I forgot even which one it was, like burned up all those people, right? It started with the C. So the entire idea of this is a Challenger. Was it Challenger? Okay, there you go. And the entire premise of this is that, like, scientific iteration is not a, just a lateral curve where you're not lateral, but like a literal curve where it just gets better and better and better. That's not what happens.
I have no idea how I'm supposed to do
He
this.
doesn't do
Yeah.
government. I thought they got rid of him at the
That's what I meant to
RNC
say.
because he doesn't do government.
A TV host, yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Nobody would ever confuse me with doing government. I mean, unless I wanted to.
You wouldn't lie about it either.
No.
Well, here's the thing. It's so patently unacceptable, I think, to root for any kind of damage like that, because there's a real fine line between burning cars in the parking lot and, oh, it's only, damage to things. What if someone was working late? What if you threw and the wind there is no end to the possibilities, and for there to cheer failure.
If these people could pull people in Teslas out of their cars and beat the shit out of them, they would do that. The only reason that they don't do that is it's too risky. That's the truth, is that if you're the kind of person that's willing to destroy the vehicles, you would also hurt the people that are in the vehicles. That's the real reason.
Of that rocket ship, for them to cheer burning of Tesla car. There is no place for that here.
Wild shit, it is.
So the question that I have, and the liberal network that, look, and they were by the grace of God could go anybody, but right now they're failing miserably and firing their people. So I couldn't be all wrong on that. But why would you wish for the death of the American economy? Why would you be against Americans? I don't think this is new. This is like when we saw the
This is the same thing during COVID, is that people were happy that COVID was happening because it made Donald Trump look bad. This is the exact same thing.
prop up of anti-Semitism in this country last year. Where do you think it lived? Right next door. So these people who hold these views against America, this isn't like some rash that just came on. No, this is an infectious thing that's been around for a long time, and this is how they really feel. So think about that when they try to get you to vote for them.
Imagine celebrating humanity failing to advance scientifically. Some people might want to move to North Korea. I mean, I think that's a great use of our tax money. Yeah. If they want to go to North Korea, I'd pay for it. Absolutely. Bill Maher already said he wanted a recession so Trump wouldn't win. Yeah, I think it was a pretty popular sentiment around then that, and this is the thing, right? It's a bunch of rich people who will never live with any consequences of the economy in like a real sense. So they're okay celebrating and pushing for a recession or pushing for some sort of economic downturn because it's not going to hurt them and it makes the people that they don't like look bad. That's it.
As Michael still tries to convince you that he's in government, think about that. He's a talk show host.
And innovation does not come, obviously, without trial and error. There are multiple no's before the yes. Every superstar has that story. Professional athletes, Olympians, and the like, including our space program, like the Mercury program, where there were explosions and losses of life. So to mock this trial and error period for someone that is putting themselves out there for the betterment of society, to me, just shows how ignorant these talking heads are, how embarrassing that they are, that they're continued to be given amplified.
Well, that's why they're getting their shows canceled. It's because they're unlikable, obnoxious, stupid, and annoying. And ultimately, people aren't watching them. That's the real reason.
Positions.
Yeah, I mean, what they're trying to do is they realize they don't have a message, as we talked about, to the American people. So what they're trying to do is make Elon Musk this boogeyman. And they want him to be the boogeyman, just maybe kind of drive up turnout from Democrats in midterms and have really stoke fear as if Elon
Am I
Musk
cheating? Is this cheating?
So spooky, when really all he's doing is trying to make our government more efficient, trying to root out a lot of the waste, fraud, and abuse. And so what do? You just start running.
Yay, I did it. I have no idea if that's the right answer, but it's my answer to this problem.
One side of the aisle, but all Americans benefit from these types of explorations. And so it's sad to see somebody on the news making that kind of play.
Yeah, that's the first time I heard that.
I'm sure there's a degree of personal interest and self-gain that Elon gets from making the government more efficient and being involved with the government. But
oh no, they might not all make
I
it.
feel like if you asked like 10 years
Damn, I
ago,
gotta
if you asked
smooth
people,
it
do you
out.
think the government wastes money on stupid shit? I bet 99 people out of 100 would say yes. So the entire, like, it's been very weird that this opinion that seemingly every single person has is now considered politicized. When everybody knows the government wastes money. 100% does, but it's not solely self-interest. Well, what's most important is if they're doing something that's bad. I think doing something out of self-interest isn't a bad thing as long as the outcome is good for more people. Or it's not bad for other people.
Steele, leave government to those of us who do government. Mr. Steele, we tried that. And you know what you gave us? $36 trillion in debt, $9.1 trillion in inflation, 8 million people crossing the border. the fall of a country and the death of 13 heroes and wars in 2 others. So we've let the government people try, and they've failed. Now let Elon Musk.
I don't believe in the myth of experts in a lot of these cases. I think that these people that run the government are probably just fucking morons. Like, one thing that I've learned is that most people in most places are morons. Just in a general sense. Like, not anything specific.
I should buy this game for my
just
nephew.
overall.
And Donald Trump. And rooting against SpaceX, for those who did that in that soundbite, they're trying to get 2 astronauts who have been stranded since the Biden administration out of space. So don't you dare root against SpaceX. Root for those 2 astronauts.
Yeah, and if you are...
Hello.
It's
Welcome back to
destructive
the
and
Aperture
reductive
Science Computer
to
Aided
actively
Enrichment
root against
Center.
it. Yeah, there's no
Your
reason
first
to do
task
that.
is
Up
to
to a
build
Tesla
a bridge
dealership
so
dressed
that a
all in
test
black throwing
vehicle
Molotov
can reach
cocktails
the
and causing
test
a car to
chamber
explode.
exit.
That just isn't, that's not just vandalism. That's a threat against somebody's life, and it should be treated as such.
She's right.
It absolutely is. And apparently, there are so many threats against Elon Musk right now, according to Lawrence, that his private security team has to be
Hello,
deputized. They can
and
bring their
welcome
gun
back to the
to
Aperture
more
Science
events around
Computer
the
Aided
president. So
Enrichment
it's
Center.
just very unfortunate. This rhetoric only
Your
causes
first
more
task
damage.
is to
Which is
build
why
a
it's
bridge
incumbent
so
upon
that
those
a
figures
test
to
vehicle
understand
can
the
reach
influence
the
they have
test
and to
chamber
condemn
exit.
all of this violence and to not cheer for failures.
God damn. Yeah, it's really
From
weird as
now
fuck,
on,
man.
interlinked
It is
portals
extremely
will
fucking
always
weird
have
that these people are doing
a
this.
brave vehicle to
Like, I don't even know what to say about it. Yeah, regressing to apes. Yeah, I mean, like, it's yeah, they would rather that happen than for people to be honest, right?
Sorry, I just figured I should buy it for my nephew. It's one of those. It's a good game, I think. It's on sale.
Well, folks, a lot to get to today on the show. Everything from the stock market dump of yesterday and the state of the economy to the White House deciding to deport a Hamas sympathizer from the United States, a green card holder. First, the mainstream media thinks you're too dumb to see through their lies. They like to twist the narrative or manipulate the headlines, bury the truth. We know better. At the Daily Wire, we're going to bring you the facts, what I do here professionally, and then you get in on the conversation. Join the live chat during our daily shows, 100% uncensored, ad-free, packed with fans who actually think for themselves. Plus, every day a producer from our show will be there to talk to you about the news. Get the news the way it should be, honest, fearless, without the left-wing agenda. Your voice matters. Be a part of it. Join now at dailywire.com/subscribe. So yesterday, obviously, we saw a massive stock market dump. The stock market, Dow Jones Industrial Average, dumped almost 900 points. the stock market has been in a bit of a free fall over the course of the last couple
Does
of
it
months.
expect us to go like
And this is something
boing?
that I've been predicting for a while. It turns out that when you mess with the market mechanisms, people don't like it. Investors tend to take their money out of the market and wait for things to be a little calmer, a little more steady. If you think of the free markets as essentially an ocean, sometimes it's pretty choppy out there. Right now, it's choppy. And here's the thing. If this administration is blamed for the choppy waters, that is quite bad, not just for this administration, but for everything that in the public mind it represents. According to the Wall Street Journal, a new round of recession fears rattled markets on Monday, sending the Dow Jones Industrial Average down nearly 900 points, eroding Wall Street consensus that U.S. stocks would be among this year's biggest winners. By the way, this is having an impact on President Trump's approval ratings. There's a new poll out from Emerson today that shows President Trump is underwater on the economy by 11 points. He's still at 47.45 in his overall approval rating. That is largely due to the widespread and correct perception that on immigration he has totally changed the ballgame. We're experiencing the lowest levels of illegal immigration ever recorded in the United States, as far as I'm aware. But when it comes to the economy, which is the thing that most people vote based upon, make their political decisions based upon, if President Trump is blamed for an economic downturn, the effects of that could be disastrous, not just obviously for the Trump administration, but for many of the things that are important for the United States, including free markets more generally. According to the Wall Street Journal, worries about a trade war, signs of flagging growth, splinters in the artificial intelligence trade have taken some of the shine off prior optimism. President Trump over the weekend refused to rule out a recession this year. The S&P 500 fell 2.7%. NASDAQ lost 4%. Bank stocks slid along with shares of smaller companies perceived to be sensitive to the economy. Bonds rallied. That's where money tends to go when people are uncertain what to do. They start buying bonds because at least they feel like they're going to get paid off at a certain point. While the U.S.'s strength is in question, other countries are ramping up efforts to revive their own economies. China is unleashing more stimulus to meet its economic growth target. Germany has announced a spending splurge on its military and infrastructure. Now, again, all of that is fake, meaning that if you just borrow to spend, which is what the United States has been doing for a very long time, you end up with an artificially inflated economy. This has happened in the United States. It's way more true for Germany and China, actually, than it is of the United States. However, there is something else happening, and it's deeper, and that is a widespread perception that the Trump team is trying to reshape the global order in a way that will not be good for the American economy or the global economy. Right? This is a widespread perception that is beginning to sort of percolate into the markets. And again, I'm talking to many of the market makers. I'm talking to business people who have literally hundreds of millions of dollars invested in the markets, and they are all very, very wary of the sort of signals that are being put out. And signals matter an awful lot when it comes to the economy these days, because as I've spoken about before, if you're even a small business person, what do you want to make sure that you're going to invest in your business? You want a growing economy. You want to make sure that the government isn't going to come and take your money. The government isn't going to come in and overregulate you. And that the conditions tomorrow are going to be very similar to the conditions you have today. That's how you make predictive decision making. It's how you decide whether to hire that extra employee. It's how you decide whether to invest in more capital equipment. It's how you decide whether to expand your holdings in particular areas or contract your holdings in particular areas. Predictability matters. Now, President Trump is not a predictable president. He has never been a predictable president. But the one area that he was always quite predictable on was his economics. President Trump liked tariffs, but you know what he liked more? He liked results. And so what that meant is that during the first administration, when he talked tariffs a lot, the total amount of tariffs effectually that were put on the American economy ended up totaling something like $30 billion total. It was not huge. And much of it was designed to leverage places like Mexico into signing a new version of the USMCA. I think one of the reasons that people in the markets are particularly perturbed by Trump's attacks on Canada in the markets is that it's one thing to say we're going after Mexico to get them to close the border. That's a piece of leverage. All right, fine. It's another thing to say, okay, we're going to put tariffs on China because China is stealing our intellectual property and building up their military at incredibly rapid rates. Totally agree. Fine. Canada? What did Canada do? Exactly. And the very notion that Canada is not a major trading partner with the United States is untrue. Canada is our number one trading partner. And Canada, again, has extraordinarily low average tariff rates with the United States under a deal negotiated during President Trump's first term, the USMCA. So the aim at Canada appears to the global markets to be a move away from America's involvement in the world in total. As I've spoken about before, that doesn't mean we need to be involved everywhere, either militarily or economically. However, the reality that America is the global hegemon is one of the reasons that the American economy continues to be the behemoth that it is. When you withdraw from what is a de facto financial empire, when you withdraw from providing global security and freedom of the seas, when it appears
I thought I
attempting
could
to
destroy
use
this
law in
thing
order,
with
the rest of the world has less
the
interest in
platforms.
investing in you, buying your debt, for example, funding your giant government expenditures. The rest of the world is less interested in doing business with you if it's harder to do business with you. And this has a very, very bad effect on the economy, not just outside the United States, but inside the United States. It turns out that autarky, the notion that we should produce and consume everything in the United States, that's a romantic idea. Everywhere it has been tried, literally everywhere it has been tried over the course of the last 2 centuries, it has ended with impoverishment of the population, followed generally by expansionism. That is true in Germany. It is true in China. It is true pretty much it is true in Russia. It's true pretty much everywhere it's been tried. And so if the markets think that's what you're doing, even if you're not doing it, that's not going to be good for the markets. As Reuters is reporting, President Trump's tariffs have spooked investors with fears of an economic downturn, driving a stock market sell-off that has wiped out $4 trillion from the S&P 500's peak last month when Wall Street was cheering much of the Trump agenda. A barrage of new Trump policies increased uncertainty for businesses, consumers, and investors, notably back-and-forth tariff moves against major trading partners like Canada, Mexico, and China. Now, President Trump, for his part, he's saying, listen, short-term pain for long-term gain. Here's what President Trump had to say with Maria Bartiromo.
You said, look, we're going to have a disruption, but we're okay with that. Is that what you meant? The stock market going down was the disruption? What other disruption were you alluding to?
Look, what I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
That's true.
And you can't go by that. You have to do what's right. What we're doing is we're building a tremendous foundation for the future. Tremendous foundation.
Okay, you need to explain, if that's the case, what is the tremendous foundation that is going to lead to future growth, and how do we get from point A to point B in a way that doesn't blow up everybody's 401k? It turns out, by the way, more than half of Americans are heavily invested in the stock market through things like their 401ks. This is not just a quote-unquote rich people problem. This is an everybody problem. And the sort of side effects of market downturns affect everyone from Main Street to Wall Street. As the Wall Street Journal points out, there's some red lights that are already flashing. Take Friday's jobs report, which showed employers added 151,000 jobs last month. That's half as many as in November and December. Leisure and hospitality jobs have been declining in the past 2 months, which may indicate consumers are pulling back on their discretionary spending. The labor force participation rate fell 0.2 percentage points to 2.4%, owing to a decline among men. Manufacturing did gain 10,000 jobs in the month, but the number of workers employed part-time who wanted but couldn't get full-time work increased by 460,000 to 4.9 million, which is the most in spring of 2021. Service businesses are being whipsawed. Transportation equipment manufacturers are being whipsawed. Whipsaw just means one day they think that there's going to be a tariff, one day they don't know that there's going to be a tariff. And so everybody's looking for what's the overall vision here. What is the overall vision? Is this President Trump using tariffs as leverage? We don't know. Is this President Trump using tariffs as a way to force everybody else to lower their tariffs? We don't know. We've heard that justification too. Or is it just that President Trump sees a vision of the United States with higher tariffs and a reshoring of manufacturing that is good for particular industries, but very bad for the American consumer by raising prices overall and also disconnecting the American economy from other parts of the globe that actually, by the way, again, do subsidize the American economy? I understand that there is this notion that trade deficits, where we buy more stuff from people than they buy from us, somehow reflects American weakness. But the reality is that there are many poor countries with trade surpluses and there are many rich countries with trade deficits. Trade deficits are not what they appeared to be, not necessarily. The reality is that if we spend more money abroad than people spend here, those dollars come back. How do they come back? Well, very often they come back in the form of governments either holding our dollars as the global reserve currency or in the form of other governments buying American bonds, which funds our growing national debt, which is out of control. And I love what Doge is doing. We need to bend the cost curve. The reality is, as I've said over and over, and I'll continue to say, we are not solving our national debt problem unless we take a look at the very things no one on either side wants to take a look at. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, means-tested welfare programs. Those are the massive drivers of the American national debt. Elon Musk understands this, but trimming around the edges isn't going to do it. Obviously, it's a very dicey time for investors, and smart investors need to prepare ahead of time, just like keeping a life jacket handy before you set sail. That's why many people are adding gold to their portfolios, leading to record gold prices in early 2025. There's still a great opportunity for you to diversify and strengthen.
I've added silver to my portfolio. I hope.
Gold, I personally trust Birch Gold. They're who I
Just a
turn to
little.
for my own gold investments. Their specialty: helping you convert your existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA backed by physical gold without any out-of-pocket costs. One 5-star review says it perfectly. Knowledgeable, helpful, non-pressure. That's exactly why I've stood behind Birch Gold for years.
I'm glad I didn't get ripped off. And it's actually silver.
On gold by texting the word Ben to the number 989898. There's no obligation, just useful information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews, text Ben to 989898. Let the experts at Birch Gold help you secure your future today with gold. Again, this is a very uncertain market. It's difficult to know which way things are going, and this is why diversification has always been a time-tested and useful strategy. Go ask all your questions by texting Ben to 989898, and then let the experts at Birch Gold help you out. Also, you know what's funny? When we started the Daily Wire, I thought the hard part would be creating awesome content. Well, it turns out dealing with the behind-the-scenes stuff, the hiring, HR policies, employee issues, that's the stuff that eats up your time. And listen, I'm not alone. When you're a business owner, every second of your time is incredibly valuable. So don't waste your energy and risk losing money dealing with time-sucking payroll issues, office politics, and HR infractions. Focus on the stuff that matters most, running your business with help from Bambee. Here's what makes Bambee
This is so fun. This game, dude, I'm so glad I found this game.
At a fraction of what it costs to employ
Oh, it's so fun.
Get this. Bambee costs just $29 a month, whether you have 10, 75, or even 100 employees. If I had Bambee when I was first building this team, would have saved a lot.
Hold on, I'm gonna get more coffee. I just have one question, chat. Why are you gay? Why are you gay?
A lot of hours, a lot of headaches. Instead of getting bogged down with paperwork and compliance stuff, I could have focused on growing the show, connecting with the audience. With Bambi's HR Autopilot, you don't have to waste your valuable time getting into the weeds on HR policies, onboarding, terminations. Plus, Bambi's month-to-month, no hidden fees. You can cancel anytime. Right now, get 1 month of Bambi for just $1. Go to Bambi.com, type in Ben Shapiro under podcast to schedule your first call with an HR manager right now. That's 1 month of Bambi for just $1 at BAMBEE.com, Ben Shapiro podcast. Right, here is Elon Musk correctly citing one of the key phenomena that demonstrates the sort of underlying weakness of the American economic plan based on our spending. He says our interest payments are now outstripping what we pay for defense.
Our interest payments are higher than our Defense Department budget. That's I think was the real wake-up call for me, was looking at seeing that the interest payments on national debt exceeded the Defense Department budget. And that was only growing over time, which meant if we didn't do something about this, then there won't be any money for anything. We'll just be servicing debt.
And you know how to read an income statement, and you know how to read a balance sheet. You've had some business experience. I'm kidding, but yeah, you know about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, really, I just don't want America to go bankrupt.
Okay, that is correct. But Doge is not going to be capable of single-handedly doing all of that. And many of the moves that we are currently making, it's about to make it very difficult to raise more debt. Okay, and all of this is tied to what is the actual sort of overall Trump plan. And it takes a little while for the Trump doctrine to sort of take shape. Again, I have my idea of what the Trump doctrine is. That's very different from, say, Tucker Carlson's idea of what the Trump doctrine is. And President Trump doesn't really have a Trump doctrine. President Trump just has a series of what I think are very good political instincts and a fundamentally good set of principles, but that doesn't necessarily translate into something overall. But the way the markets are increasingly reading what President Trump is doing globally is that President Trump wants to reshore everything and he wants to withdraw from the world. And that is not going to have beneficial effects for the American consumer, the American producer, the American economy at large. And here I want to talk about the sort of problems that are going to arise from this vision. So there's a really good analyst. His name is Balaji Srinivasan, okay, who's an American entrepreneur and investor and a former general partner at Andreessen Horowitz. And he has a good tweet thread today explaining why it is that the world is perceiving some of the moves that the Trump administration is making as indicative of a broader worldview problem that could undermine sort of American strength. He says, here are 4 things MAGA is getting wrong and why it's handing over the world to China. 1, MAGA correctly understands that America's economic position is in decline, but think this is due to economic competition itself rather than lack of competitiveness. This is a big thing. Okay, he's right about this. The reason that America has been in relative decline versus China is not because the competitive global markets are bad. It's because America is not competitive in the American global markets. And Trump understands this, by the way. It's just sort of the other half of what he's doing with tariffs. Meaning, when he focuses on tax policy and regulatory policy, that makes America more competitive vis-a-vis other countries. Getting rid of competition entirely via tariffs, via cutting off world trade, via abandoning parts of the world is not likely to result in American victory. It results in American impoverishment. Second, he says, MAGA understands that the U.S. has wasted trillions abroad in foreign wars, but thinks the problem is global leadership itself rather than poor leadership. And again, this is a really important point. Obviously, the United States has involved itself, particularly in Iraq or Afghanistan, in wars that were either unwinnable or had such bad strategies attached to them that they became unwinnable. That does not mean that abandoning the globe to the predations of the Chinese, Russians, and Iranians is going to be beneficial to America, that is going to increase America's health in the world, economically or otherwise. We need to be concerted about how we use force and how we threaten to use force, but a world without America is a worse world, including for Americans. Third, MAGA knows their blue American enemies have allies abroad, but has incorrectly overreacted to this by treating every non-red American as an enemy. Okay, this is, I think, the point about Canada. Yes, it turns out that blue America took over the institutions of the United States. The left took over the major institutions, including things like USAID, and then they fostered abroad alliances with a bunch of people who actually don't like America very much. That does not mean that the United States does not have allies abroad who are worth cultivating and attacking places like Canada, for example. By the way, the attacks on Canada are likely to elevate blue American types to power in Canada. The person who just replaced Justin Trudeau as head of the Liberal Party is a Davos boy. He's a World Economic Forum guy, and he is now riding high in the polls thanks to this tariff war that we're having with Canada. And fourth, says Balaji, MAGA sees the billions of dollars flowing from the United States to foreign recipients, but isn't grasping that the U.S. can only print those dollars in the first place so long as it's the hub of a global empire. This is the point that I was making last week about the dollar as the world's reserve currency, is that, yes, we fund a lot of places, and a lot of places fund our debt. That is just the reality. He says, basically, MAGA is hyper-focused on cutting off any apparent flow of funds from red Americans to blue Americans and non-Americans. They're trying to quickly shut off imports, close down institutions, and exit all wars. Except the reason imports exist in the first place is because the United States products are not competitive relative to other products or Fed printing. The reason those institutions exist is because the United States set them up to run the world. The reason those wars are happening is not because of American leadership per se, but because of the absence of good leadership by America. If you shut all of that down at once, you shut down American empire and with it the ability to print money, fund your debt, or anything like that. This is a correct analysis. And if the world perceives that as the program, it is not going to be beneficial to the markets. It's not going to be beneficial to American citizens. Again, this is not America needs to be the world's global police person involved every single place. This is not America needs to trade with everybody at the same rate. This is if there is a generalized perception in the markets and across the world that America is withdrawing, that is not going to be beneficial for the United States, because an American-led world order is better than a non-American-led world order. Beyond that, there are going to be some real downsides here in the United States. We need President Trump to succeed, particularly economically. We need him to succeed, particularly economically. This picture, I think, is going to be the story of the next 4 years, one way or another. This is a picture from the inauguration. You'll remember it because it was obviously a pretty famous picture. This is a picture of all of the tech bros arriving at the inauguration. And you can see it's Elon Musk, it's Sundar Pichai, who's the head of Alphabet, it's Jeff Bezos, the head of Amazon, it's Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Facebook, Meta. Right? They were all there at the inauguration. They were flanking President Trump. And it was sort of an amazing moment because you had all these business leaders, many of whom were not, in fact, allied with President Trump over the course of his career here, who were at the inauguration. Now, the only downside to that is that if the economy sinks, what do you think is going to take the blame? What President Trump is doing right now with tariffs, that is not free market oriented. Tariffs are not free market oriented. They're a government control on imports and exports. That's what they are. They're effectively a tax on consumers. If the economy dips, the American people are going to perceive that business itself is to blame for what happens next, regardless of the fact that many of the measures that are currently being taken by the sort of nationalist conservatives in terms of economics, measures like subsidies, new regulations in certain areas, tariffs, which are a form of regulation, that all of these sorts of battles really are not oriented toward free markets. They are more of a Bernie Sanders economic program in some ways than they are in a sort of traditional libertarian free market program. The perception of President Trump correctly is that he is a businessman and that he is capitalism oriented. If the economy sinks while he is president in a serious way where Americans turn against him, and again, he's underwater on the economy right now, if that happens, it is not just going to damage Trump, which would be terrible, and damage the Trump administration and the Republican future, which would be terrible. It is going to be used as a club against all of business, all of it. There will be a blowback against business, capitalism, and free markets, despite the fact that it wasn't business, capitalism, and free markets that brought us to this point. It was overweening government spending and then a bunch of pseudo-corrective measures that are attempting to be taken by the Trump administration in the form of autarkic reshoring. The sort of popular response is something that I've learned over the course of watching politics at a granular level for almost a quarter of a century. I've been doing this since I was 17. I'm currently 41. One of the things that I've noticed, and this is true for everybody in every industry, when you're in an industry and you know the ins and outs of a thing, when you know the details of the thing, you think everybody else knows the details of the thing. You think everybody else follows the ins and outs. That's not true. And let's say that you are Leonardo da Vinci and you're painting the Mona Lisa. You know where every single brush stroke went. You know the amount of effort it took in. What did people take away from the Mona Lisa for most people? They walk into the Louvre, they look at the Mona Lisa, they see it's a lady with no eyebrows, they kind of shrug and they walk away. That is most people. And the same thing is true in every industry. If you're an accountant, you know the ins and the outs of the tax laws. And so you figure maybe everybody else kind of has a general idea. The answer is no. They just know whether they're paying more or whether they're paying less. And when it comes to politics, I may know, or you as a listener to shows like this one, may know the ins and outs of global geopolitics and economics. You may follow this stuff at a closer level than 99% of the rest of America. Most people only see line go up, line go down. And if line goes down while President Trump is president, the blowback is going to be not just against tariff policy, it's going to be against business. It's going to be against capitalism. It's going to be against Elon Musk and Pichai and Zuckerberg and Trump and everyone associated. The American public does not see issues in terms of nuance. The American public sees good or bad. If the economy goes down, then what you're likely to see is an upsurge in left-wing populist sentiment against free market capitalism. And you're likely to see.
I'm not sure if it'll do the convoy. The bridge might break.
Totally ignorant. And
See
by
what
the way,
happens.
utterly hypocritical given the fact that he's a millionaire himself.
Yeehaw! Woohoo! Whoopie-dee-da day.
You're going to leave the country because of one guy with dyed hair plugs and a laminated face who makes a bad car and has an obsolete social media platform? You're going to leave this. Why doesn't he leave? Why isn't he stopped? What are we so afraid of this guy who can't fight his way out of a wet paper bag?
You can take him on.
Like, why do liberals just sit back and not, they have nothing?
What are you doing?
This.
Okay.
This. You got to speak up about it. You don't just go like, oh my God, what? Like, listen, first of all, it's like, I'm a stand-up comedian. It's not my friggin' job. I'm talking about, like, Democrats.
It's not my job.
Politicians.
I could have predicted that. On bingo card. Put that on the bingo card.
See this guy do this
It's not
thing.
my job.
You know what the end result of this thing is, which all these neo-Nazis, not only are they stupid because they're neo-Nazis, they don't
Are
even
you?
look at
I'm
what
sorry.
Hitler
Can you
did.
get drafted?
He ruined their country. And this idiot is going to try to lead us down that road and then play it off and act like he didn't do what he just did. And you can get canceled as a comedian for doing a friggin' Caitlyn Jenner joke, but this can Sieg Heil and nothing. Where are all the liberals? Where are all of these white chicks at the award shows that were speaking truth to power? Where are they? Why did they choose to go after comedians and not the Ku Klux Klan? How come they never got canceled?
Okay. Now, again, this sort of attack on Musk, this sort of neo-Nazi, he raised his arm stuff is nonsense, but the populist, anti-capitalist, anti-free market, anti-business attitude is going to be extremely common if the economy sinks. That's going to be a real problem. Well, he is not a genius, but you know what is genius? Policy genius. Securing your family's future is of utmost importance in today's world. As somebody who's always advocated for smart financial planning, I can tell you, having the right life insurance coverage is not just about peace of mind. It's about giving your family options if the unexpected occurs. That's why I want to tell you about Policy Genius. They're not an insurance company themselves. They are the country's leading online insurance marketplace. They let you compare quotes from America's top insurers side by side completely free with absolutely no hidden fees. Their platform uses real licensed insurance experts who work for you, not the insurance companies, so you can find the best fit for your family. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies starting at just $292 per year for $1 million in coverage. Some options are 100% online, let you avoid those unnecessary medical exams. The process is fast and simple. Their licensed support team handles everything, answering your questions, managing paperwork, advocating for you throughout the entire process. Don't take my word for it. Thousands of satisfied customers have left 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. No matter what stage of life you're in, Policy Genius will help you find the perfect coverage for your specific situation. Secure your families tomorrow so you have peace of mind today. Head on over to policygenius.com/Shapiro or click the link in the description. Get your free life insurance quote, see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/Shapiro. Also, what does the future hold for business? If you ask 9 experts, you'll get 10 answers. Bull market, bear market, inflation, up, down. Well, until we know for certain what's coming, over 38,000 businesses have found a way to future-proof their operations with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP. Imagine having your accounting, financial management, inventory, all seamlessly integrated into one fluid platform. That's NetSuite. With this unified business management suite, you're not just juggling numbers, you're wielding a powerful tool that gives you visibility and control to make quick, informed decisions. It's like having a map in a maze of market uncertainties. Real-time insights and forecasting? Check. It's like peering into the future with actionable data at your fingertips. And here's a game changer. You'll be closing your books in days, not weeks. That means less time drowning in paperwork, more time focusing on what truly matters, steering your business toward success. At the Daily Wire, we're proud to partner with NetSuite because they're leading the way in future-proofing operations for businesses around the world. Whether your company's earning millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars, NetSuite adapts to your needs, helping you respond to immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities.
Interesting, very interesting.
Learning at netsuite.com/Shapiro. The guide is free.
How do we get these up there?
Shapiro. That's netsuite.com/Shapiro. Now, one of the
And
theories
still
here
have
is
a
that one of the things President
bridge
Trump is trying to do
to go
actually
across
is devalue
here.
the American dollar so as to boost our exports for purposes of fixing the trade deficit. So I went to our friends over at Perplexity, and I asked a simple question, and Perplexity does a good job of explaining this sort of stuff. Quote, what are the effects on the ability of the United States to sell our debt if the value of the dollar drops? Because this is sort of the biggest single question. You heard Elon earlier talking about the fact that we pay more interest on our debt than we are currently paying on the defense budget. So what happens to can we raise new debt if the dollar is devalued? And here is Perplexity's excellent answer. Negative effect. Reduced foreign demand for U.S. Treasuries. A weaker dollar may lower the appeal of dollar-denominated assets, including U.S. Treasuries for foreign investors. If the dollar depreciates, foreign holders of U.S. debt could face losses when converting interest payments or principal back into their own currencies. This could lead to reduced investment in U.S. debt markets. 2. Higher interest rates. To attract buyers for its debt amid declining demand, the U.S. government may need to offer higher yields on treasuries, increasing borrowing costs. Rising interest rates can also exacerbate concerns about debt sustainability and put upward pressure on real yields. 3. Loss of confidence. A sustained drop in the dollar's value could signal broader economic instability, potentially triggering a loss of confidence among investors in U.S. financial assets. This could result in a sell-off of U.S. Treasuries and further depreciation of the currency. In other words, everybody else who's holding our debt thinks that the new debt actually is going to be less valuable than the old debt, and they start selling it off. 4. Inflationary pressures. A weaker dollar increases the cost of imported goods and services, potentially fueling inflation. Higher inflation erodes the real returns on fixed income assets, like treasuries, making them less attractive to investors. Now, what President Trump could be focusing on, theoretically, is the positive effects of a weaker dollar. And President Trump talks about how he wants the Federal Reserve to lower the interest rates and inject money into the economy. Increased competitiveness. A weaker dollar makes U.S. exports cheaper and more competitive internationally, which could boost economic growth and improve trade balances over time. However, the reality of a weaker dollar is that America can be competitive without doing that. You don't need to upend America's ability to raise debt by increasing tariffs, by lowering the value of the dollar. Those are not things that are necessary right now. We're already in an inflationary spiral. We don't need more inflation on top of all of this. And as Perplexity points out, the major long-term effects would be things like de-dollarization. So again, something I was mentioning last week, the entire American economy is reliant on other people buying our debt on a continuous basis to fund our government spending. Countries might diversify away from dollar-denominated assets, reducing their reliance on U.S. treasuries as reserve holdings. And concerns about sanctions or asset freezes might further reduce foreign official demand for U.S. debt. I totally agree with Perplexity's conclusion here, that while a weaker dollar could stimulate certain aspects of the economy, it poses risks to the U.S.'s ability to sell its debt efficiently by increasing borrowing costs, undermining investor confidence in Treasury securities. That is correct. Thanks to our friends at Perplexity for sponsoring that search. Well, again, in the search for some sort of sobriety and stability in the economic space, the Congress right now is looking to push forward a continuing resolution. We spoke with Representative Chip Roy, again, a very strong fiscal conservative in Congress, yesterday on the program. Speaker Johnson is now eyeing a House vote today on a 6-month funding extension that was crafted on a partisan basis. He's going to rely on only Republican votes to pass it in the House and dare Democrats to try to oppose it. It looks as though there's a strong shot that it is going to pass. The shutdown countdown is down to 3 days because the shutdown happens on Friday. Many, again, of the more conservative members of the caucus are on board. There's one who is obviously not going to be, and that, of course, is Thomas Massie, who's reliable no vote on everything. Like on everything. He's essentially Ron Paul, but from Kentucky. Same voting record, same general worldview, all of it. Well, this prompted President Trump to go after Massie, correctly noting that Massie basically has no interest in governing almost ever. And in a situation like this, what you actually need is Republicans who are willing to govern. Again, the job of being a congressperson is not the same as the job of being a podcast host or the job of being a CNN commentator or something. Like, it is literally your job to try and go for 80% of the pie. This is why, again, I think that Chip Roy does a good job of this. Chip actually tries to push the ball as far as it will go while recognizing that the ball eventually is going to have to be kicked. Right? Something's going to have to happen. He will push the line as far as he can without falling into the trap of just saying no to everything. Well, President Trump put out a statement yesterday saying that he will lead the charge to oust Thomas Massie for his refusal to support the government funding bill. He put out a Truth Social post. He said, Congressman Thomas Massie of beautiful Kentucky is an automatic no vote on just about everything. He said Massie should be primaried, and I will lead the charge against him. Now, Trump had also, prior times, tried to unsuccessfully oust Massie. Massie responded by saying, I've had a challenger who tried to be more MAGA than me 3 times. None busted 25% because my constituents prefer transparency and principles over blind allegiance. Again, totally fair for Massie there. However, it is a reality that Massie is reliable no vote on everything that would be sort of effective for Republicans to do. And even though I agree with Massie, actually more than many other Republicans, on his generalized spending proposals, is Trump wrong to target Massie about all of this? I mean, if the continuing resolution fails and we get to Friday and the government shuts down, the downside effects are going to be very, very strong for the Republicans, including Republicans in Congress. And it's easy for Massie to say, since he's not in a purple district. He's not somebody who's going to battle his way back to the Congress. His district is like a plus 20 Republican district. So all of this, you would think, might provide an opening to Democrats, right? This would be the moment where Democrats start to make their economic pitch. Oh, look at the oligarchic Republicans with their business ties, and yet they're sending your 401k spiraling down, right? This would be like, if you were a smart Democratic politician, this is the thing you would be doing, correct? You'd be focusing in like a laser beam on the economy. Because if the economy continues to decline, if we fall into recession, that's going to be your move. And yet Democrats are apparently complete idiots. They fell off the stupid tree and hit every branch on the way down because they're focused in laser-like on the defense of a Hamas sympathizer whose green card is going to be removed. This is the thing they have decided is absolutely vital for them to stand against. It's unreal. I mean, seriously, it's just political malpractice at this point. So this person's name is Mahmoud Khalil. Yesterday, the White House announced that they would be moving to deport Mahmoud Khalil. Who the hell is that Mahmoud Khalil? Well, he's an anti-Israel pro-Hamas activist, and he's an actual pro-Hamas activist who led protests at Columbia University when all those buildings were occupied and the Intifada was taking place. It was announced by the White House that ICE would be arresting him and removing him. The White House put out a meme reading Shalom Mahmoud, which of course is a reference to President Trump's statement, Shalom Hamas, telling Hamas they needed to give up all the hostages or they would cease to exist. Obviously, the connection there has to do with the fact that this person is extraordinarily pro-Hamas. President Trump said, we will find, apprehend, and deport terrorist sympathizers from our country, never to return again. Which seems like a pretty commonsensical policy, that if you're here on a green card and you support terrorism, probably you shouldn't be here. We don't need you here. According to the Wall Street Journal, Columbia University student Mahmoud Khalil was the first to be arrested by Homeland Security agents for his participation in pro-Palestinian demonstrations on campus. President Trump vowed he would not be the last. And again, that is a misread by the news department at the Wall Street Journal, which is to the left of the New York Times. He was not arrested because he went to a pro-Palestinian demonstration. He was arrested because he has active ties to groups that openly support Hamas. That would be the reason. Trump said in a social media post, quote, we know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who have engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity. The Trump administration will not tolerate it. The Education Department said Monday it sent letters to 60 schools warning of potential enforcement actions if they don't fulfill obligations to protect Jewish students. And again, that is an outgrowth of the Civil Rights Act, which lays out that all these colleges have anti-discrimination policies on the basis of race. That applies to black students, white students, Jewish students, Arab students, everybody. So you can't selectively fail to enforce the law when it comes to the Jews, is sort of the point that Trump has made. Khalil played a prominent role in organizing protests last year against the war in Gaza, often addressing crowds on Columbia's lawn and giving interviews to national media. He was inside the Barnard Library during an occupation last week to protest the expulsion of 2 students for earlier demonstrations, according to photographs posted on social media. But that is not actually the full story about Mahmoud Khalil and the people he has associated himself with. Secretary of State Marco Rubio put out a statement, we'll be revoking the visas and or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported. The Homeland Security Department put out a statement as well, quote, on March 9th, 2025, in support of President Trump's executive orders prohibiting anti-Semitism and in coordination with the Department of State, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested Mahmoud Khalil, a former Columbia University graduate student. Khalil led activities aligned to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization. Again, there's a difference between pro-Palestinian and aligned with Hamas, although that distinction has been obliterated by the pro-Palestinian crowd, who have largely aligned with Hamas at this point. So what are exactly...
All right, we'll just work with the chaos. Hopefully the bridge works. I'm not sure if we can clear that gap or not.
In trouble here?
Let's try to work on this part for now.
That he headed, Columbia University apartheid divest,
All right, what do we need to do?
withdrew an apology that it made for a member who said Zionists don't deserve to live.
What happened to him?
Columbia University apartheid divest, which was this guy's group, put out a statement. This is according to the New York Times, October 9th, 2024. Quote, we support liberation by any means necessary, including armed resistance. That's not just pro-Palestinian, that is pro-Hamas. That is what you are talking about. They then distributed a newspaper with a headline that used Hamas's name. Quote, 1 year since Al-Aqsa flood, revolution until victory, it read, over a picture of Hamas fighters breaching the security fence to Israel. The group posted an essay calling the attack a moral, military, and political victory. I mean, that's pretty pro-Hamas. That's not like that's like a terrorist group. And again, if you're an American citizen and you do this sort of stuff, that's one thing. If you're a green card holder, why do we need you here? Green card does not give you the right, under American law, to actively orient yourself toward terrorism. That is not a thing. When the founders were constructing the Constitution, they're not like, let's bring people from abroad who hate America and love terrorism. That was never considered a right under American law. The group wrote on October 7, 2024, quote, the Palestinian resistance is moving their struggle to a new phase of escalation. It is our duty to meet them there. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. That would be Hamas that this person is talking about. So, again, the New York Times recognized at the time, this is before the election, that this could lead to federal investigations into campus anti-Semitism or on-campus discipline if these were deemed to create a hostile environment for Jewish students. Now, again,
He made it!
It turns out that Khalil's group, the Columbia University Apartheid Divest, was one of 100.
Yeah, I think we have to reinforce some of these
by journalist
parts.
Ryan Morrow over at Capital Research. Khalil's group says that it is, quote, fighting for a total eradication of Western civilization. It also asked for help from violent extremists abroad. Quote, we seek instructions from militants in the global south. Khalil's group said, we in America must be killed, jailed, and tortured and targeted in order to genuinely threaten the state as part of the global intifada. He suggested the only way to respond to state repression is to storm prisons and release prisoners and burn down prisons, government offices, and state vehicles. That's Khalil's group. I mean, like, I don't know how much clearer your sympathy for Hamas has to get in order for you to, violate the law. So what does the law actually say on this? Well, what exactly does the law actually say? Well, good news, we actually know what the law says. According to Immigration and National Act, Section 212, there are a number of grounds for ineligibility for a green card or immigration based on security grounds. That includes, quote, anyone who endorses or espouses terrorist activity or persuades others to endorse or espouse terrorist activity or support a terrorist organization. So, that. The Supreme Court has ruled back in 1904 that anarchists, for example, could be barred from the United States. Congress is of the opinion that the tendency of the general exploitation of such views is so dangerous to the public weal that aliens who hold and advocate them would be undesirable additions to our population. Again, there's a section of the INA that grants the State Department broad authority to deport any alien, quote, whose presence or activities in the United States the Secretary of State has reasonable ground to believe would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States. And that is exactly the authority that Secretary of State Rubio is citing in this guy's deportation. So you're hearing the sob stories from the left. So what did the Senate Judiciary Democrats do? Again, the stock market tanked to the tune of 900 points yesterday. And it has tanked to the tune of a significant percentage of the stock market's total value since the election. So what are Democrats focused laser-like on? Their hero of the day, open Hamas sympathizer, and pseudo-revolutionary Mahmoud Khalil. They put out a tweet, the Senate Judiciary Democrats, with a picture of this guy that said, free Mahmoud Khalil. So just to get this straight, Democrats would not cheer last week for the family of Laken Riley. They would not stand up and applaud the family of Jocelyn Nungary, who was killed by illegal immigrants, but they are going to stand foursquare behind a terrorist sympathizer who used to work for the UNRWA when not calling for the overthrow of Western civilization. They're going to cheer for that guy. He has to stay in the United States. Guys, the political malpractice here is so strong. The Democrats here are so bad. so unbelievably bad at this. Truly, truly awful at this. Now, a judge has temporarily blocked the deportation. He's going to get overruled. This judge also happens to be brothers with Jason Furman, member of the Obama administration. Most of his relatives work in like deep blue American institutions and all the rest. Van Jones, perhaps the last sane man on the Democratic side of the aisle, he was pointing out, like, guys, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
Look, man, we're screwed. I mean, we don't know. No, Democrats don't know what to do. This is a nightmare. You know, somebody like Donald Trump, we thought we'd at least have, you know, Hakeem Jeffries in the speaker's chair to hold him back if we didn't have Kamala in there to do the right thing. Listen, the Democratic Party is going through a massive set of internal crises. You have a party that got trapped two ways. One, defending a broken status quo that nobody likes because they thought that Donald Trump was going to make it worse. But when you're defending the status quo, you're going to lose. And then offending most people in the country, calling everybody sexist and racist and transphobic and every other name, and then saying, please follow us. That's not a good strategy, folks. Defending a broken status quo and offending most of the country turns out is not as popular as my party thought it was going to be.
Popular.
Van is the only person speaking truth to power on CNN who is not a stated Republican. But the Democrats are going to keep going down this path, which is why Whoopi Goldberg had on Dylan Mulvaney, singularly responsible for the complete collapse of the Bud Light brand. They had on Dylan Mulvaney, a man pretending to be a woman, to talk about how men should compete with women in athletics. I mean, they keep doubling down on stupid. It's amazing. It's amazing. The roulette wheel keeps turning up the other way, and they're like, what if I just keep doubling down on the stupid?
Well, I think part of the problem that the trans community is facing, and it's the same problem that women face, is if you don't know anything about our bodies, you don't know how it works. So when you come in and you say, oh, you know, these are men, you know, competing against women, you're assuming that the women are weak and just can't do anything except be here. Have you seen female athletes? They know what they're doing. So I'm not sure what's going on or why this is an issue.
Okay, unbelievable. I'm sorry, but female athletes who know what they're doing, like Riley Gaines, who's like an NCAA champion, they're going to get clobbered by any half-decent dude in the pool. Everyone knows this. This is just basic human biology. I'm sorry that facts exist for Whoopi Goldberg because it makes her job really uncomfortable, but let Democrats keep following this path. Seriously. And Democrats are stuck because they keep throwing out these same types of people. There's an entire article in Politico about Tim Walz, as though Tim Walz is going to make a giant comeback after his goofball presentation on the national stage, or Kamala Harris, or Gavin Newsom, who's now cleverly attempting to move away from some of the woke stuff. The thing that I'm absolutely puzzled by, if you're a Democrat, I do not understand. You have a point of vulnerability now in the markets. Why are you not focusing on that? And the answer is they're so tied to their own social issues that they can't let go of them. This is the thing they actually care about. It's truly amazing. By the way, when it comes to the colleges and universities, we mentioned what's going on at Columbia. Something fairly amazing happened yesterday. So Harvard and Yale were among 60 colleges who were warned of fund cuts over claims that they have not properly policed discrimination against Jews on campus. And these universities are panicking. They are freaking out. These universities are claiming that this will mean serious cuts to their budget, to their ability to take care of students. I mean, you're saying the quiet part out loud, which is that you're government-supported institutions. All of these campuses have billion-dollar endowments. They have much money, lots and lots of money. But they are adjuncts to the federal government, and now that the federal government is saying, no, we're done with this, they're freaking out, which demonstrates just how deeply intertwined pseudo-private institutions like Harvard and Yale are with the blue state Democratic Party in the federal government. Already coming up, we're going to get into the latest in Ukraine. We're also going to be getting into a piece of interesting news from Netflix. First, you actually go become a subscriber. And the reason you do that is because we have all sorts of great stuff behind the paywall, right? We got Morning Wire, we got Am I Racist, we've got What is a Woman, we have All Access Live, tons of stuff. And you get to hang out with us behind the paywall, right? If you're not a member, become a member, use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.
But at least a few Dems have learned something from the past 10 years besides how to be a
I don't hate you. Malfunctioning.
No, we almost made all of them. Oh, one got destroyed. That game crashed. That means we have to play another game. That means this game's dog shit. And we have to play another game. What game should we play? Skyrim? Fallout? I'm using mods, but in the spirit of not modding, as you can see what mods I have. No real mods. Just bug fixes. Actually, I should get the unofficial patch too. Might as well. What did we need? We needed oil, circuitry crystals. I think we needed oil, right? We're going to Diamond City for oil. If I remember correctly. Oh, that's right. We were walking to Diamond City and the game crashed, and then we switched games. I'll be right back. I'm gonna brush my teeth real quick. Alrighty. Come on, dog. Oh no, a citizen needs help. I should help. I've done that tens of thousands of times. You think in Call of Duty? We need a pipe pistol because we lost our other one somehow. Did we sell our 38? No, we still have 38. Do you think there's traps in here? Can't remember. Paint. What does a dog mean? What's wrong? What's wrong? You want a tweet? Hmm. I feel like this has got to be booby trap somewhere down here. Boom, headshot. Master. 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 No, let me give it a kiss. Mwah. Oh. Where did the other direction go? Back up to the counter? Hmm. Alright, I think that's everything we care to get out of this.
So you got one of those fancy vault suits.
What do you mean you can't open the gate?
Stop playing around, Danny. I'm standing out in the open here for crying out loud.
I got orders not to let you in, Miss Piper. I'm sorry. I'm just doing my job.
Ooh, just doing your job. Protecting Diamond City means keeping me out, is that it? Oh, look, it's...
Is the volume good on my stream? Connor.
So you got one of those fancy vault suits.
What do you mean you can't open the gate? Stop playing around, Danny. I'm standing out in the open here for crying out loud.
I got orders not to let you in, Miss Piper. I'm sorry. I'm just doing my job.
Ooh, just doing your job. Protecting Diamond City means keeping me out, is that it? Oh, look, it's...
Is the volume good on my stream? I just realized my mic is way louder than the game volume.
The scary reporter.
I'm sorry, but Mayor McDonough's really steamed, Piper. Saying that article you...
I wonder where that is.
wrote was all lies. The whole city's in a tizzy.
Ugh! You open this gate right now, Danny Sullivan. I live here. You can't just lock me out.
Oh, and I'm gonna try something else. I'm gonna see if I could get the audio just from the application and amplify it. Let me see. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what to do with the audio. Like why it's so low.
Danny, open up!
I might need to restart my computer or something.
You want into Diamond City, right?
I just got here, but yeah.
What's that? You said you're a trader up from Quincy? You have enough supplies to keep the general store stocked for a whole month? You hear that, Danny? You gonna open the gate and let us in, or are you gonna be the one talking to crazy Myrna about losing out on all the supply?
Jeez, all right. No need to make it personal, Piper. Give me a minute.
Better head inside quick before old Danny catches on to the bluff.
Sounds good. Let's go.
Another great day in Diamond City.
It's actually bothering me that my audio is so low.
Sullivan to keep that gate shut.
Like I can't. It doesn't go any louder.
Rabble-rousing slanderer. The level of dishonesty.
I'm gonna restart my computer and see if that helps. Maybe I'll update OBS too. I haven't updated it.
Tyrant mayor shuts down the press. Why don't we ask the newcomer? You support the news? Because the mayor's threat.
Always believed in freedom of the press.
Oh, I didn't mean to bring you into this argument, good sir. No, no, no. You look like Diamond City material. Welcome to the great green jewel of the Commonwealth. Safe, happy, a fine place to come. Spend your money, settle down. Don't let this muckraker here tell you otherwise, all right?
What are you two arguing about, anyway?
What do you think? Print lies and everybody's happy, but if you print the truth...
Now, was there anything particular you came to our city for?
I'm trying to find someone.
Trying to find someone? Who?
My son, Sean. He's less than a year old.
Wait, your son's missing? Oh, you hear that, McDonough? What's Diamond City Security doing to help this man, huh? This isn't the first missing persons report to come through here, and now we have an infant who's been taken?
Don't listen to her. Well, I'm afraid that our security team can't follow every case that comes through. I'm confident that you can find help here. Diamond City has every conceivable service known to man. One of our great citizens can surely find the time to help you.
Well, sure. And a mayor of a great city must know everyone. Who can help me?
Well, there is one private citizen, Nick Valentine, a detective of sorts who specializes in tracking people down. Now, I have to get going. I'm sorry, Diamond City.
This is ridiculous. Diamond City Security can't spare one officer to help? I want the truth, McDonough. What's the...
I've had enough of this, Piper. From now on, consider you and that little sister of yours on notice.
Yeah, keep talking, McDonough. That's all you're good for. I'm impressed. Not everyone can claw information out of McDonough's tight-fisted hands. Why don't you stop by my office after you see Valentine? I think I just found my next story.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to restart my computer. Well, first, yeah, I want to update OBS too.